Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to another Twilight show with your host, Michelle. And joining me tonight are two remarkable guests who will discuss general attitudes towards option subjects. The question is, do we genuinely value them as educators? How do our students react to them? Stay tuned.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Happy Wednesday once again, my listeners and special guests, whom I'll introduce shortly. But it's so good to be back. This is my second Twilight show for the month, and it's really good to be back. So it is actually really happy to continue with this series that I've started last week when I looked at sports provision. But before I get into that, let me pause. Stay tuned while we listen to some of our supporters.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK, home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Future Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for BetUK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
So there you have it. Welcome back. That EdTech show, please make sure if you're around and available, that's something to check out. EdTech is the way to go. And so before we begin to go through some of the questions and hear from our guests, just a brief reflection, something I always like to do. Last week, we talked about sports provision in secondary schools with guests, and they shared varying experiences. What the show highlighted was the inequity in sport provision and contrasting attitudes, whether amongst parents or students themselves. We were made to acknowledge the far-reaching benefits of sports, of course, both cognitively and physically. So I just want to say thanks again to my guests from last week, the lovely Rack and Steve, who shared their honest opinions. And I decided to continue on that trend where I talk about the subjects that we tend not to focus on so much, or we don't give it as much attention in schools. And if you look at the title of my show, it's about the core. Is it the core that takes majority of the focus in our schools, majority of the resources, majority of our attention? And, is that justified? So that's what we want to talk about tonight. And according to a report published by Ofqual in 2017, perceptions of subject difficulty and subject choices are linked to two things. And they're actually linked to each other as well. And they're suggesting that pupil perceptions of subject choices are often influenced by whether or not they will enjoy this subject or how relevant it will be for university matriculation. And so that's something I'd really like to unpick, because we've all been there where we had our options evening and we spent hours discussing it with our parents, discussing with our teachers, careers advisors. And ultimately, according to this report, they're suggesting that sometimes students choose what they think would be easier for them, or choose things that they think would help them further on for university. So tonight we're going to talk about that and the term of choice, because the report went on to say that, are they really given much of a choice? Or are there some biases, the way in which schools present those choices, suggesting that sometimes they really don't have a choice? They're steered in a particular direction based on what the school thinks is best for them. And so that's what we want to unpick tonight. How much are we allowing our students to choose? And how much are we investing in our option subjects? I know Emily's online and she is head of history in another school. So I'd love to hear from Emily as well about attitudes towards these option subjects. Who are the students we get? What information do they have before they actually choose those subjects? So we're not wasting much more time. We're going straight into the questions. So my guests, welcome again. Thank you so much for sparing the time to be with me tonight and on Teachers Talk Radio. So I'm going to go to the first question. And Lacey, this one's for you. Well, for both of you, I'm starting with you, Lacey.
Okay.
What were your options in school? And if you could briefly describe the process leading up to your final decision.
Okay. It's quite different from the British education system. Because we don't have GCSEs, we have a diploma program. So in years 7, 8, and 9, that would have been, when I was in school, considered junior high school, is now considered middle school. You don't get options. It's like it is here. You don't really get options. You try a bit of everything. During that period of time, we had art, we had music, we did family studies, tech ed, which was like woodworking and things like that. And then we also had PE. Now, aside from PE, the other courses were on a rotation, but PE we had every single day during those years, which at the time I hated, mainly not because I wasn't athletic, but because I didn't like to be sweaty. But looking back on it now, I think was incredibly beneficial. In senior high school, that was when we actually got to pick our options because we were working towards that diploma. And each course would be worth so many credits. So when it actually gets to that, they break it down into 3 different categories of language, communication, and expression, science, maths, and technology, personal development, and society. And out of that, I would have to have 3 courses of language arts, which is our English, and then 1 arts course, 3 courses of maths, 2 courses of science, etc. But the majority of it was actually left quite open. So although we were able to choose 2 courses of science, we didn't have to take all of the sciences. So I could have taken just 2 courses of biology, and that would have met the requirement. So actually, we had a lot of choice, not just in options, but also what would have been considered core.
Oh, that's interesting, Lacey. So therefore, by the time you got to the senior years, you would have had a really good idea of the subjects that you would like to pursue,
yes,
rather
definitely.
than choosing it in year 9.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Like I knew that going into senior high school that, for example, I didn't want to take French. And at the time, it wasn't a requirement. I didn't have to take a language. I knew that I didn't want to take physics, for example, because that's just not for me. I ended up taking biology. I did 1 semester of chemistry, but again, that wasn't for me. And the majority of my options outside of my required credits were actually social sciences, which ultimately is what I did in university.
Wow, that sounds really good to me, because it's the level of maturity. And I know that there are schools who get students to choose as early as year 8. And have a 3-year GCSE course, which I don't know if in year 8 at 12, 13, I'm ready to decide on what I want to do with my life yet. So it's actually good that in your context, students get a chance and an opportunity to explore these subjects before making a decision.
We really do. And we were also encouraged, take drama, take art, take music, take a little bit of everything. Our option subjects, it was viewed as a time of exploration. So we were really encouraged to find out what we like, find out, what are the different parts of you, which I think looking back on it now is incredibly valuable.
Thank you so much. I think this is something the British curriculum might need to consider. Now, from your perspective, Lacey, how have attitudes towards optional subjects evolved over time, the time that you've been here in the UK? Have you noticed any trends in student or parents' interests, or do they just stick to the traditional routes?
What I have noticed is, and I think this is sort of the trend towards more, I guess, modern subjects, things like coding and business. There seems to be a trend of students being directed towards computer sciences, and that's fine. That's definitely going to be a needed or a required skill in the future. But it does seem to me that what I've noticed the most is that parents will push their children in the direction of courses that seem to be more marketable or employable, I guess, would be the term I'm looking for, as opposed to, the child might really love photography or the child might really love art. And I have had conversations on the phone with parents before about, well, that's well and good, but they need to be able to support themselves in the future, and art's not going to do that. And I can understand a parent, wanting their child to be successful in the workplace in the future. However, I think they are discounting the value of the arts.
And that's the operative phrase there, discounting the value of the arts. Yeah. And it's not just about the profession or the career that you're going into. It's the other skills that you develop studying these things as well. And I remember when I was choosing my options, Lacey, back in the day, and this was in Kingston, Jamaica. And, I went to what we would call high school, which is in UK terms, a grammar school. And it was the expectation for all of us girls to be as academic as possible. So when it came to options, we were offered physics and add maths and so on. Now, maths has never been my strength. And so I steered clear of that. And the principal was saying, right, Michelle, if you do this and this, then it means that you have to do this and this. And it just did not add up. In the end, I just created my own timetable. I looked for where literature was and I attached myself to that literature class because I ended up, because of what I chose, the option that was given was home economics. And to be honest, and I'm not knocking home economics, it is needed and vital, but I just didn't want to do that. It just wasn't my interest at the time. And so I did everything I could to create a timetable, which then impacted on my career, to be honest. So yeah, but again, I totally agree that attitudes might have changed over the years. Now, I'm going to continue on the value of optional subjects, Lacey, and hopefully Remy will join us soon. Now, many argue that optional subjects offer valuable skills and knowledge. how do you see them contributing to a student's overall development? So I know your specialism in English, but you sent me a really impassioned voice note on the values of physical education. So thinking about PE as well and other subjects, how do you think they contribute to their overall development?
I think that your option subjects are really where you can start to focus on the holistic development of the student. Now, I did send you a very passionate message about physical education, and that is honestly coming from someone who, as I said, did not like PE in school, but I was very active on different sports teams. I think that when we start looking at subjects like PE, we're giving children the opportunity to develop a physically active lifestyle at a very young age. And I think it was a report by Public Health England that said that, children between the ages of like 5 and 18 should have 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a day. And that's for obvious reasons. Now, I think that's one is to live a healthy lifestyle and encourage that and create that routine, but also probably to help regulate. I know for myself as an adult, I've gone back to running because that helps me regulate myself. So as a child, having that opportunity to be in PE every day while at school was absolutely brilliant because you get to get all the little bugs out, right? That little extra bit of energy, and then come back and sit in math and be focused. Even, that's just one example, I think, of a really important option subject. But then, of course, you have the value on arts and music and dance where people get to express themselves, right? They learn how to express themselves. They find different avenues of expression and also develop skills like empathy and compassion and independent learning, inference, right? All of those skills are developed in those optional subjects.
And an appreciation and an awareness of the world around them as well. And it gives them cultural capital as well. And I don't think a lot of parents or students themselves consider those things. It's the stigma attached to the option subjects. And so they will think, if you choose that particular option, it means that you're not clever enough. It means that, you're not clever enough. Therefore, that's why you're doing that. And they will go around and compare notes and so on. So it's so important that we, raise the awareness of the value of these option subjects. Now, in your experience, do you think, or have you noticed whether or not students take optional subjects seriously, or are they often seen as a lighter part of the curriculum?
I think that if a student is genuinely interested in the topic, they take it seriously. If it is an option that they have chosen themselves, then they place a great deal of value and importance on that subject, as opposed to a subject that perhaps they've been forced into, or something that they don't want to take. I've seen kids that have been really challenging in core subjects like English go into food tech and absolutely just soar, because that's where their interest is. That's where their skills are. And it's so valuable to see them and appreciate them in that situation. So I don't think they're lighter. I think they are just as important, if not more important, in some scenarios.
Exactly. Now, having said that, though, do you think leaders take them as seriously? Do you think whether they're doing it inadvertently or not, do you think they present optional subjects as something that has importance or is very important to the school curriculum?
To be honest, I don't think they do. And perhaps that's not intentional, but there is a big focus on, results and your core subjects and what you're going to need, maybe necessarily going into university, whereas they may not place as much value on food tech, for example, or DT, perhaps. But I think they deserve more credit than perhaps what leaders give them, and even other members of staff. I had a discussion this week about, one member of staff said that she had been on the phone with a parent, and to the parent's credit was saying, can you not take my child out of whatever the option subject was for intervention because they really enjoy that subject? And the staff member's response was, well, they might have fun, but ultimately they need to improve on X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And I thought, the parent is correct in this. We shouldn't always be penalizing option subjects because they are just as valuable.
Exactly. And it's so good that parents are stepping up now and recognizing that, because that's why I asked the question, because it's common across schools where when it comes to exam time and the exam pressure, students are pulled from these option subjects and the core subjects, because, I teach English as well, so I'm not bashing the core subjects. The core subjects are given all the time for revision and extra sessions and so on. So therefore, what is that hidden message that we're sending to our young people? That, no, it's okay, you just need your maths, your English and science, and everything else you just need to work on independently. So I think it's so important that as leaders, as teachers, as parents, that we support our young people and get them to explore, as you said. Explore and, do the things that they love and embrace and enjoy. So I'm going to make a confession. When my daughter was choosing her options, she wanted to do music and performing arts. And I was adamant that it was one or the other. And I went to school, met with her teachers. The music teacher said she will excel. The performing arts teacher said she will also excel. And eventually, Lacey, we had to come to a compromise. And I said to her, okay, listen, do performing arts because all the other subjects are so demanding. So do performing arts, and as a respite, and that's the term I use it to relax, but focus on the more academic subjects. And somebody said, we've got one of our guests, thank you so much for your comment, said SLT still do not value non-core subjects. So after the break, we would like to expand on that. And I'd love for you also to share why you think so. Why do you think that? Is it for the reasons we've given, or is it some other observation that you've made? We're going to take a short break. And when we get back, hopefully we'll hear from our lovely Remy as well. Lacey, thank you so far. Stay tuned, everybody.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development program, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Future Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurecareers.com and subscribe today. Future Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for Bet UK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, BET has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
Welcome back, everyone. So tonight we're talking about the attitudes towards core subjects in our schools. We're asking whether indirectly or directly we place less emphasis on these subjects. We're talking about the value these subjects bring to our students as individuals, as society, members of our society, how it prepares them for the future. You know, we talked about briefly, Lacey shared with us the Canadian curriculum, that children have a choice and they do that later on. They don't have to do it immediately in junior years, year 9, but they're encouraged to explore other subjects, explore other options before they make a decision, which sounds really good. And, you know, we talked about in some schools where students are being asked to choose as early as year 8. We talked about the Ofqual report, which said, is it really a choice, or are they steered or geared towards particular courses? Now, in my context, business studies is very popular as an option, and that's because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur or everybody wants to take over the family business. So it's a really popular choice here in the UAE at the moment. Subjects such as drama, dance, music, I think those subjects suffer a little bit when it gets to the exam years because the focus then shifts to the core subjects. So tonight we're discussing how can schools help to promote these optional subjects and to show students the benefits and to encourage them to sign up for these courses alongside the core so that they can become optimally rounded citizens. It doesn't always have to be the sciences. We don't all have to be doctors and teachers and lawyers. You know, we need the people in the creative arts to produce those fantastic films, those dance shows, the fashion. So it's important that we do that. But the question is there enough provision for these things? And are these courses the first ones to be cut when there's a problem? So welcome back. So maybe speaking from the perspective of a form tutor or just your observations, have you encountered any cases where a student, for example, their optional subject choice might drastically change their academic path or career aspirations? So something that probably they didn't consider choosing, they did it, and it really shaped who they become?
I have to say, actually, it's the student I spoke about who excelled in food tech. And I wasn't his form tutor, but I was in a pastoral role at the time. And he chose food tech. And I'll be honest, we were all a bit nervous when he made the choice. But he really loved it and he excelled in it. And by the time he got, halfway through year 10, he said, I want to own a restaurant. And I'll be honest, I don't know if he owns a restaurant now or not. I'm sure he probably does work in the industry. But what I noticed was the knock-on effect. So he went from being really disengaged in English and maths to being very engaged. And I remember him saying to me, because I was his English teacher, I need this because I want to run a business. I want to run my own restaurant. Yeah. And the amount of effort that he then put into English was, I have to say, it was truly amazing. He really did turn it around. And it was through that option subject that he found purpose. And it was just wonderful to see.
And that's because he grew to understand that the combination would work for him as well. And his future plans, having English alongside his food tech, would then perhaps set him up for success.
Exactly. And he really understood that was where his success was going to come from. And if he was going to have a restaurant, he wanted to be taken seriously. And he knew that he was going to need all of these other skills.
Exactly. So we do need these options. Hope, welcome, and everybody else who's joined us tonight, welcome as we talk about the options, frank and honest and open discussion about how do we treat them in schools? Do we really give them the value or place the value that they deserve on them? Or, do we just treat them as that third cousin where with limited resources, the distant cousin, occasionally we make reference to it. And one of our listeners online said they do not think SLT value course non-core subjects as much as they do the core subjects. So that's something to unpick even further. So if you wish to add to that, if you wish to share a comment, share your thoughts, your own experiences, remember, download the Podbean app. You can call in and we can have a chat, or you can send us your comments and we will welcome that as well. So talking about shaping your life based on your options, my son chose really academic subjects as well, but then he chose drama, which was a shock to me because I did not see him as a performer. But by this, I'd learned from my daughter's experience and I didn't comment on it. So he did drama, and he was the last of the year before the COVID, so 2019. He sat his exams, and I remember when he got his results, he said, because he did really well. And he said, "Oh, Mom, I did so well. Should I do the sciences in sixth form?" And I said, "But that's not what you want to do." He wanted to go into the arts. And so I encouraged him just to be himself and pursue that. And he's studying fashion today. So it is so important as well as parents that we have the right mindset to support our children so that they don't feel as though they're making the wrong decision because I'm not doing what my parents expect or what society expects, or I am lesser than, or I'm not very intelligent, therefore I can't do this. Because I think for the arts and these option subjects and other humanities as well, who selected as options, that you have to be really clever. So it's nothing to do with your cognitive ability, and we really need to get rid of that stereotype. And in schools, the way we plan our curriculum, the emphasis we place on certain subjects, we need to be more mindful of that. Do you think the current balance between core and optional subjects in the curriculum is ideal? Now think about your own situation. Is there a balance, or do the core subjects get more time?
The core subjects definitely get more time, and I think it is an imbalance. Mm-hmm. So actually, as core this year, the school that I work in has decided to push EBAC subjects, and we have lost a lesson in English. And that lesson was obviously given to another EBAC subject, which I thought was interesting. But what has also happened is that option subjects have also lost an hour as well. So I think that we are definitely not balanced correctly. And if we want to get the balance right, I think we need to consider what truly is a core subject. And I could say something very controversial here by saying that, for example, I think English literature should be an option, not a core subject.
That is controversial, but actually, I agree with you, Lacey.
Oh,
and yeah, to be honest, several years ago, English literature was an option. And, well, an option to an extent. And also, I think the more able students would be chosen to do literature. So, for example, the year when I taught 2 literature groups, the only 2 literature groups, all 96 of them passed their exams. Okay, listeners, I'm not bigging up myself, I'm just saying. And they passed it because it's something they truly wanted to do. And at the moment, Lisa, you're right. It feels as if we're imposing literature on our students.
We really are. And I mean, when I was in school, again, it's called language arts. It's not called English language or English literature. And at the end of the year, when I took my provincial exam, that was effectively a language exam. But during the course of my senior high school years, I studied over 50 different literature texts. And that is from poems to plays to novels, novellas, short stories. We were exposed to a wide range of literature, but we were taught our language skills through the literature. So I'm not saying that by not teaching English literature or having English literature as an option subject, that you don't introduce the students to text or books, because I think that's important. I actually think that teaching language from extracts isn't that enjoyable for anyone involved, if I'm being really honest. But if you want to specifically study literature, then again, have that as an option subject on the side.
Yes, I agree. And to be honest, right throughout the curriculum, literature is studied, year 7 to year 9. And I think if they're given a choice to study other things, literature should be one of those, because we have to be honest. The way we study literature is more on the analytical front, and some students just cannot grasp that, or they just want to enjoy a book. And so when we ask them, what do you think the writer was saying here? Or how does the writer feel? And, I'm sure you've experienced this, Lacey. They will tell you, I don't know. I wasn't there when they wrote it.
Yes.
Or Miss, I had a year 11 class last year, and I was doing poetry. And one very scientific-minded student said, Miss Hines, the poet was not thinking that. They did not put a comma there because of that. They were just writing their poem, miss. And so you get the pushback from those kids. So yeah, you are right. Maybe sometimes we need to rethink that as well. Some educators feel that optional subjects are undervalued in comparison to core subjects. And we've talked about this a little bit, like maths, English, and science, and we've already covered that a bit. But if you want to expand on that, do you share this sentiment that is undervalued? Not that it's not recognized, but undervalued.
I do. I think they are definitely, I would say, undervalued. As someone who teaches core, I think the conversations that you hear around the other subjects, such as DT or art or dance or drama, that again, as you have said, they're, the courses that perhaps people think you take if you're not academic or you're not intelligent in some way. And that's not the case. I think that actually taking those courses requires a great amount of intelligence and emotional intelligence as well. But I would agree. I do think they are undervalued.
Yeah. And in order to do that, just the same effort we put into the core subjects and celebrating them and promoting them and showing them the importance, just as how we get students to study William Shakespeare, for example, the same energy that we put into those things, we should do the same thing for our non-core subjects. So we've got a caller. Could you tell us who you are, please, and share your thoughts?
My name's Davina. I'm also a dance teacher.
First of all, if you don't mind, could you go back a little bit and tell me about your experience choosing your options when you were in school? I'd love to hear your experience first.
So when I picked my options, I decided not to pick dance or PE. And the reason why was because I... at the time, I think I wasn't in love with my dance teacher. I just kind of was just, okay, dance is just something I was doing as a, just as a like lunchtime club and after school club. And I was really good at PE. Both subjects I was really good at. And my PE teacher asked my mum, you need to get her to pick it. And I was just like, Mum, I kind of want to go down the social worker kind of route. So I picked sociology, GMVQ business studies, and history. And then I decided at the end of year 11 that it was something that I thought this is not a subject I like, but it's not what I enjoy. And I love dance. And a new dance teacher came when I was in year 10. And she was amazing. She changed the perspective for me. And I kind of just wanted to do dance. I wanted to teach dance. I didn't want to be a dancer. I wanted to teach dance. I wanted to inspire other students. So then I went off to college and did dance as a BTEC, and then went to university and did dance. And then that kind of paved the way for me to get into teaching. But I didn't get into teaching until later on, which was like a good... I only trained to teach like 4 years ago, and I'm going to be 40 next year. So that's the journey I took. But I've always taught dance along the way.
Oh, fantastic. Now, something you mentioned, Davina, you said you weren't a fan of the teacher at the time.
Yeah.
Do you think these things impact on students' subject choices?
I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking about me in my classes at the moment. I know I had quite hard classes last year where I pitched, to pick dance, I pick PE, and we did like a sample, like a little bit of a sample, so they got to know what they would do when they got to GCSE. And one child, she picked dance, but the only reason why she picked dance was because she thought I was going to be her teacher. Now this year, I'm not going to be her teacher. I'm not teaching any GCSE dance, and to the detriment, now all my students are upset because I'm not teaching them dances. The other teachers is going to be teaching them dance. So I think if she knew that I wasn't her teacher, she wouldn't have picked it.
Okay. One of our listeners, Emily, said such an inspiring story, Davina, and thanks for sharing that. And don't worry about how late you've come into teaching. It means that this is something you've really decided on doing. So we're happy to have people like you inspiring our young people in education. So that's interesting as well. Do you think the passion that you show translates to the students, and that also helps to encourage them to join courses like dance? Do you think a lot of that has to do with the teacher's passion? If they don't think it's valuable themselves, how will that translate for students?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay, so because I got kicked out. Sorry, say the question again.
Yes. So I was saying, you mentioned students signing up and being really disappointed that you're not their teacher this year. So I was saying, do you think that the teacher's own passion in these option subjects also plays an important role in the choices the kids make?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think if I turned up every day to work and kind of was a bit flippant about my subject, and it was just there is no value to my subject, I think we wouldn't have the students that walk through our door. And I try to tell, the younger years, especially year 7, year 8, before they get to year 9 and start picking options, that dance is not just about it's not about just a career of just being a dancer or being a teacher. There's so many different avenues that you can go down, and the amount of skills that you pick out, being presented in a space, being dancing in front of people, those skills translate to any job, presenting yourself in front of a boardroom through the people, being, working as part of a team, communication skills, organization, memory, because it's movement memory. You've got to be, you have to remember everything that you did for the week next. All those skills you pick up and you can translate it into anything. And I think if I wasn't passionate about my subject, I think there would be no point in me doing my subject if I wasn't passionate about it. And I'm really encouraging the students to get into dance. And like I said, I make this clear in my classes, not everybody's going to like dance. Not everybody's going to like PE. But it's what happens after you leave school. You might leave school and then, 5 years from now, you might want to walk into a dance class, and you have the skills to walk into that dance class. You might have the skills to walk into a gym and join an aerobics class or join a gym because you've experienced those little things in school. And that's what I try to tailor, and that it's not for everybody. But those things you pick up and the skills you pick up are going to translate longevity, because we all try to aim to have a much more healthier lifestyle.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that insight. And first of all, listeners, Davina was not even meant to be a guest on the show, but she stepped in, and I appreciate that so much. Lacey and I were trying to speak from our perspective, but we didn't have the insight into the arts and into the option subjects like you have, Davina. So we really appreciate this. Lacey, I'll come back to you shortly, but I'm going to get as much as I can from Davina before she has to go. So you talked about the skills that they'll gain, the long-term skill, the confidence, the organization skills, and so on, the fitness as well. But what do you think, in general, based on your observation, Davina, what are people's perceptions of option subjects? How do SLTs approach this and their attitudes towards it, in your opinion?
I think in my school, it's encouraged more towards the EBAC. My school is a grammar stream school, so it's not grammar, but we have grammar classes, and those students are really pushed towards the EBAC subjects, and we've dropped hours in PE this year and dance, and I just think, it's easy for with regards to SOT to have interventions within PE. So they'll pull students out, or, if, especially like last year, students got to year 11, and they kind of just given up on PE. And when we were trying to push it and say to them, they need to kind of deal with the behaviour because we're not getting the support, they kind of just said, well, just give them the time to just sit and do revision. And that's not fair on us, because then we feel like we're babysitting.
Yeah.
And then they're not valuing our subjects. It's sort of supporting us and backing us and saying, actually, PE is important for your mental health. You need to do it as a break from the other subjects. It's kind of distilled, well, it's PE anyway. It doesn't really matter. And, just go and revise. And I think with regard to tailoring these pathways, which, it really hurts, because when I've got students who want to pick dance, who want to pick PE, who are, they feel like that other students should pick it because they're not more academically smart. And this is the problem. Our subjects are not seen as being smart enough for the students. And and we've had students this year who decided not to do French. They've decided to pick dance. They don't want to do the EBAC. They're going to do dance, and and they've got their parents to write in, because that's their passion. That's their subject. And why should they be limited to something that they don't want to do? And I think, we speak about mental health all the time in schools, but we're still trying to pigeonhole and put boxes around students, and not let students be free and let them pick the subjects that they want to do, to tailor their own path. We're tailoring it for them.
Completely agree. And, when you think about it, Davina, because you mentioned mental health and well-being, and when you take them away from these courses and you lock them in a classroom to revise, how much of that is really sinking in? How successful is that in the end? Because they're not even thinking about that particular subject at that time, because it's almost as though they're forced to do it. And Lacey, I'm sure you can relate to that as well. Do you want to comment on that? Thank you so much, Davina.
Most definitely. I have to say I agree with everything that Davina has said. And as an English teacher, I see it, right? When the kids get pulled out of PE or they get pulled out of dance, and they are literally sat in a room and told to revise, or they have to go through another intervention or another revision session, and it's not sinking in. It isn't, because they're done.
Yeah.
They're exhausted. They've had enough. And what they need is some time where they can go and express themselves in another way, where they can go and have a bit of a release.
That's it. And subliminally, we're telling them, oh, it's not that important. This subject I'm asking you to revise at this point, that's what's more important. We're going to go for a break and listen to the news. Davina, if you can, I would love for you to stay with us as we round up the show in the next half and pursue this discussion a little bit further. So we've talked about the concerns. Then we want to talk about what are some of the possible solutions. What can schools do to give us more, raise more awareness on optional subjects and to make our students appreciate them more? So do stay tuned.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Introducing Reading Solutions UK. Home to Dreambox Reading Plus, the online reading development programme, improving outcomes for students and schools nationwide. Create stronger readers in your school from Key Stage 2 to beyond GCSE, using Reading Plus's evidence-based adaptive technology. Reading Plus accurately assesses your students' skills gaps and places them on a personalised learning pathway, built to accelerate their strengths and improve on their areas for development. You can try the programme with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot today.
How can you show your students the opportunities that await them? How can you fuel their aspirations and motivate them to achieve? Futurum Careers provides a wealth of stimulating resources aimed at encouraging 14 to 19-year-olds to pursue careers in STEM and SHAPE. We help you to show your students what they can aim for and how. From articles to activity sheets, animations to podcasts, all our resources align with Gatsby benchmarks and are free for you and your students to download. Visit futurumcareers.com and subscribe today. Futurum Careers, helping teachers to inspire the next generation.
Get set for the year ahead with the Bloomsbury Education Back to School sale. Save 30% on all Bloomsbury education books until 30th September. From the very best in research-led practice to trusted advice on inclusivity, behaviour and curriculum design, we've got something for everyone. Visit bloomsbury.com/B2S sale to shop now and save 30%. Bloomsbury Education, books for every step of your teaching journey.
Teachers, mark your calendars for Bet UK 2025, the world's biggest EdTech event. Join over 30,000 educators at the Excel London from the 22nd to the 24th of January. Discover the latest EdTech innovations, network with peers and access hundreds of hours of CPD. Did we mention it's 100% free for educators? Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tools to enhance your teaching, Bet has it all. Don't miss this opportunity to shape the future of education. Register today at uk.betshow.com. That's uk.betshow.com.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The BBC reports that the Scottish Government has been defeated in a vote calling on ministers to expand free school meals to all primary school pupils. Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth said the government was committed to the universal rollout of the free meals, but that funding was not available due to financial pressures. The Scottish Government said the expansion would be limited to P6 and P7 pupils in receipt of the Scottish Child Payment, after First Minister John Swinney confirmed £500 million worth of cuts. The government cited prolonged Westminster austerity and record inflation as the main reasons for the funding gap. Scottish Conservative education spokesperson Liam Kerr submitted a motion calling on the government to give the meals to all primary pupils this parliamentary session, as promised, and said the SNP had shamefully betrayed Scotland's poorest pupils. The non-binding motion passed by 64 votes to 2. 60 abstentions were recorded. Children's Commissioner Nicola Killian said the rollback on universal free school meals was a broken promise to children, and that the move would exacerbate stigma and shame around free school meals. Schools Week covers the Education and Skills Funding Agency, which will be integrated into the core Department for Education by March next year. The move will happen over 2 stages and give schools a single point of contact for financial management and support. The ESFA is currently an executive agency of the Department for Education. Schools' financial support and oversight function will transfer from October the 1st and be brought together with the Regions Group, 9 areas overseen by regional directors. This will support the launch of regional improvement teams by January. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said this will provide a single seamless voice to schools and ensure that financial improvement is central to school improvement. Funding and assurance functions will be centralised on March 31st next year, when the ESFA will close. Set up in 2017, the agency is responsible for delivering and assuring £75 billion worth of funding for 25,000 educational settings. But the ASFA is the second education-related quango to be axed under the new government. The Institute of Apprenticeships and Technical Education is expected to close by April. ASCL have welcomed the changes if it produces a more efficient and joined-up approach to the oversight of school and college funding, but also said it would not solve the overriding problem that the current level of school and college funding is totally inadequate. The TES says that there are serious dangers in assuming schools are back to normal post-COVID. This is according to a report commissioned by Head Teachers and Leaders Union ASCL. Tim Oates, Group Director of Assessment Research and Development at Cambridge University Press and Assessment, writes in the report that schools are still dealing with challenges. The report warns that schools will continue to see challenges unfold for the next 5 to 10 years, as children whose development was impacted by the pandemic move through the system. The paper comes as 5 children's rights organisations has called on the government to remove the long shadow of the pandemic from children's lives. The report says the range of problems include increasing absence, widened attainment gaps, impacted reading and maths progress for certain groups, and worsening mental health and social and emotional skills. It also warns of research showing that children who were born or were very young during the pandemic face diminished social, cognitive and language development. Mr. Oates says the government must urgently work to remedy these problems rather than accepting them. A Department for Education spokesperson said it is determined to improve the life chances of all children. Finally, in the USA, KSBY News reports that California proposes a ban on large loads of homework in public schools. Assembly member Pilar Schiavo has authored the Healthy Homework Act, which would not ban homework, but which would mandate local school boards and educational agencies to establish homework policies that consider impacts on students' physical and mental health, with input from parents, teachers and students. The proposal comes as a survey of more than 300,000 American students, conducted by Stanford University, shows that 45% of students say workload and homework are their number one causes of stress. And 13,000 California high school students who took the survey report an average of 2.5 hours of homework every night. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Welcome back, everyone. That was the news for you, a little bit about what's happening in the UK. For those of us who are not in the UK at the moment, always the same, lack of funding and all sorts of issues. I was just thinking about the very terms that we use to describe these subjects, and we call a set of them core, and we call a set of them options. And, you know, Shakespeare, one of Shakespeare's plays, it said, what's in a name? But I think even the very names is so important because they also send a message. Lacey, what do you think? And then I'll hear from you, Davina.
I agree. I think it does send a message, actually. If the way that we look at core, and now thinking back to my own high school experience, there was never any point where we referred to English or maths as core subjects. Mm-hmm. It was simply, what subjects are you choosing for this semester? And I do remember being in classrooms and the principal would be there and she'd, be going through the timetable and whatever we were able to select for that semester. But at no point was there ever really a distinction between this is core. We knew that we needed to have, like, say, 3 English credits to graduate, but there wasn't really a value that was placed on them above anything else. And we also had skilled trade courses that were offered as well. So alongside of a discussion about English would be a discussion about a skilled trade, or what we used to have, like cooperative education or ComPal and subjects of that nature that were very vocational in design.
Yeah.
So I think,
so there was no distinction, core and option.
No, not that I really can think back on at all. And I think perhaps that changed our perception of the courses that we were taking. So everything was treated the same because we didn't see that maths or English was any more important than global politics or sociology. They were just the courses that we chose to take.
Yeah, thank you so much. Because, words are powerful. And from a linguistic perspective, even the way we label things does have an impact on how they're perceived. Davina, share your thoughts, please.
I completely agree. I think we need to stop putting them into boxes and making children pick a certain path. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think it all starts from primary school. Because, in nursery and preschool, children have a love for sport and have a love for PE and have a love for art. You know what I mean? All those things, and it's done in such a playful way that they don't think about, I'm doing maths, I'm doing English. And as soon as they get into primary school, it's kind of like there's more emphasis on certain subjects and not seen as, all subjects are equal. Yeah. And when they get to, they do, their tests at the end of year 6, and it's kind of like, it's those key skills that they need, maths, English, and then they get in secondary school, and it's kind of like, okay, those skills that I've picked up from school is then translated in secondary school, and everything else gets lost, and there's just no value to anything. And I think we need to start back in primary school to ensure that students know that all subjects are equal, no matter what you pick, and you should be able to enjoy all subjects. It shouldn't have to be a main focus on just one.
Exactly. So the school has a major role to play in this. The policy makers, the curriculum designers as well, very significant role in this. So Remy, before we go any further, could you tell us a little bit about your experience choosing your options? And then after that, you can tell us about your experience as a dance teacher. So as a student, as a teacher.
Fantastic. So as a student, I was really into creative subjects. I wouldn't say I didn't really like maths. Maths wasn't my strong subjects. I've always been quite boisterous. I've really enjoyed things like PE. That was what I chose for GCSE actually. And then I did textiles, and then obviously history, maths and English. But I've always felt like liberated when I started to do things such as dance, drama, and those type of subjects. There was a teacher who came in, a dance teacher. I remember her so well. I just remember her just inspiring me because all the girls just looked at her and thought, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She's amazing. And she formed a dance group, but we had to audition to get in. And I did that, me and a couple of my friends. And we did a show, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, I actually want to do dance as a career. I don't know why I just thought that, but I think it was just the buzz that it gave me. So I did it I actually joined a dance company, and then I started to dance in like a small dance company in London. And then I joined Impact Dance Company and Boy Blue and those type of things. And then I started to dance professionally. But then I went off to uni because naturally my parents wanted me to look at academic subjects. So I thought to myself, okay, mum and dad, I'm going to do dance, but I will do a different subject that is more academic, as you like. So I picked marketing. So I did dance and marketing because I wanted to impress my parents, but then at the same time do something that I wanted to do as well. So straight after that, luckily I got a job to teach for a company, which I did. As a teacher, teaching in secondary school, my experience started out fantastically. I think it was because as a young teacher, you're thriving, you're buzzing, and you're teaching a subject that you love. But as time goes on, you start to see that dance isn't exactly what it is in education as it is when you teach it outside of school. And what I mean by that is teaching dance outside of school, you can teach whatever you like. So you can add contemporary, you can have hip hop, you can have classical, you can have bashment. However, I think with the education spectrum, they tend to kind of stick to a framework and they don't really budge unless you start going into after school extracurricular activities. And I found that I was quite limiting, and I started to kind of not enjoy dance as much. But I think the main reason why I kind of stopped kind of having love for dance in education is because of how it's promoted within education. Yeah. It's not considered as valuable within SLT, within the school. I remember there was an assembly in a school I was at recently, and one of the SLT, he spoke to the students about how important the core subject was. And he said, right, guys, you have to take this, your core subject, math, science, really, really important. Make sure that you study, make sure that, you're revising, make sure you do this. And I just remember standing there thinking, wow, throughout the whole 20-minute assembly, you've literally said to the kids how important the core subjects are. So now when I teach the students and I want to reiterate how important dance and drama and art and all those other practical subjects are, the students are going to look at me and think, no, because the SLT thinks this is important and your subject isn't. So there was a battle of having to convince the students that, these subjects are great because it provides you with, a wider range of option. It tests your character. You're able to have more interaction with different people. But I can't do that if the school aren't supporting me. So I think for me, that was the struggle as a teacher. And it's been a struggle for a while, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much, Remy, for being so honest and open. I'm just going to unpick some of the things you said and ask Davina for her opinion as well. You mentioned your parents' attitude and that you tried to do a balance to please them. And Lacey, you could answer this as well. Do you think parents also have a role to play in the way our students perceive these options?
I do think parents have a massive part to play. I think if your parents consistently tell you that practical subjects are not going to get you anywhere, I think when you come from an African background particularly, it's very difficult to convince your parents. And I've seen it so many times. And unfortunately, what I used to do when I used to apply for a school is really sad to say, but I would look at a school to see if it had more, I would say, I would always look for a school that had a lot of diversity within the school. And if it had more Blacks and Asians, it was very, very difficult to have an intake within dance and creative subjects. The only reason that is based on my experience in schools is parents don't pick it because they don't see it as important. You'll have parents' evening and you'll talk to the parents about how great the kids are doing and they should pick, your subjects. And the parents just look at you and say, okay, thank you. And they just go. And you just feel so disheartened because that student wants to do dance and wants to do, all these other optional subjects, but their parents do not support that. And it's very difficult to kind of fight with parents because initially they have naturally they have the power, really. If they don't want their kids to pick it, then their kids are not going to pick it. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah, thank you. So some education around that needs to be done as well. Lacey, as a core subject teacher, so to speak, because we're trying to get rid of this core and option, by the way, Remy. But Lacey, as an English teacher and as a parent, do you think when your son decides to make his choices, do you think you'll have a role to play in that, a significant role in that? if he decides I'm going to do some drama, Mom, and I want to do performing arts, how would you react?
If he decides that he wants to do drama or performing arts or dance, then, and this is completely honestly, I would be very supportive of that. Mm-hmm. Because I think that the skills that students gain in those subjects are equally as important as they gain in quote unquote core subjects. Because ultimately he might decide years down the road that he's going to be a banker, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
Trying to think of something very traditional. But he's still going to need to know how to work as a team. He's going to need to know how to improvise. He's going to need to know how to converse with people, how to be part of a community. And to be honest, I think in subjects like the arts, students get more experience with working with other people and working through situations together than they do in your traditional core subjects. Because actually, the study of English language or English literature or mathematics is very insular instead of being something where you work with people. And also, if those are the topics that he's interested in, then I think that he needs to pursue that. Because again, that age, the age that you are when you pick your options, is a time of exploration.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mean, if I could go back in time, I would not have tried to influence my daughter's choices and stop her from doing music. But I did let her do performing arts, Davina and Remy, I did, and she excelled in it. So Davina, from your observations of parents so far, what has been the general attitude towards option subjects, in your opinion, from parents?
So, yeah, the same really. I worked in a school that had predominantly Asian, Bangladeshi students and Muslim students. And the attitudes to PE and dance or creative subjects in general was you just didn't pick it because that's not the career that you need to go down. And actually quite recently, so this year, we were expecting A-level student to come back. She is Black African and this makes me sad. And she came to Taster Days. She'd been speaking about joining A-level for the past 2 years. And then when we didn't see her in September, it was because she didn't get the grades in our school to do science. But she got 8 in her dance.
Wow.
But the school refused to let her in. But her mum said that she can't pick any other subject. She has to do sciences. And that dance was basically like a side option because her mum wants her to be a doctor. So now she's at a sixth form doing sciences that doesn't have a dance studio, that doesn't have no dance, and she's crying every day because the other dance teacher phoned home and she said, I don't know what to do with her. She's just crying every day. But she needs to do science. So her mum's basically pathed her away for her and said, you're going to be a doctor. And she doesn't want to do that. She hates science. She doesn't enjoy science. She enjoys dance. That is her love. That's her passion. But her mum has really paved that way. And like I said, the emphasis becomes, I think parents are so invested in education. But if we're not promoting all subjects in every single walks of life, then there is no care, isn't it? And then parents just don't think it's important. Being a doctor is important. Being, a lawyer is important. Being, all of these subjects where we feel like there's more money.
Yes. And prestige as well. Yeah, that's really unfortunate, but I really hope, and I think that's also a cultural barrier as well and cultural expectations. And I really hope we come around as a society, as a group as well, and to just embrace the other subjects. Now, believe it or not, we only have a few minutes left of the show, but Remy talked about she found the dance curriculum, Davina, rather restricting. And so she wasn't able to use her creative flair. So I know, Remy, you engaged in dance, then you joined the classroom. Davina is similar as well. So what is your perspective on that, Davina, that is restricting and the creativity is limited?
I completely agree. It is limited. It is, especially for students who enjoy hip hop or Bollywood or any other type of dance style, they're most likely going to get a lower grade at GCSE because they're not the traditional ballet and contemporary. And it's very limited. However, that's only GCSE dance. With BTEC now, BTEC dance, you can do whatever, and it's more open to do lots of different things that the students might want to do. It is still pigeonhole, but they can still do so much more with regards to different dance styles. And I had a conversation with the actual person who is the owner of Boy Blue, and he said, you know, we're using lots of different with regards to GCSE, they're using such old material, and that we need to move forward into this century now, into 2024, and use things that kids are liking, because kids are on TikTok. It's not about contemporary and ballet dance as much anymore. We're doing a little TikTok dances, and they're on Instagram, and they're on all of these different platforms, and dance is coming away from the traditions. I'm not saying they're still there, but it's coming away from traditions, and we need to kind of reflect that a little bit in our classrooms
and embrace the 21st century.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Thank you so much. Ladies, thank you so much. Stay put. We're not quite finished yet, but thanks for such an insightful discussion. So before we go, one last question, and I'm giving each of you a minute to share with me. Remy, I'm starting with you. If you had to convince a skeptical student to take an option subject, what would you say to them? Or what message would you send to SLT or students?
Sorry, can you just say that again, please?
Okay, so if you were to give one last message or to convince a student or SLT about the value of optional subjects, what would it be? 1 minute.
Okay, so I would say optional subjects allow you to allow you as students to have a wider range of options in your subjects. So it can lead to future studies and your career. It can test your character, such as challenges you to help and adopt different areas, such as your work ethics and your attitude. It allows you to provide opportunities for yourself. And then I would say languages as well. So when we're talking about optional subjects, we can't forget languages, because I used to teach languages as well. So having a foreign language can allow you to have more options within your career in the long run. So I think, and also when we talk about teamwork, so that's something that you need to use within everything that you do in terms of your job specs, really. So yeah.
Fantastic. Davina, 1 minute.
Just to say that I think that creative subjects are kind of like the bread and butter of the school. I know we do, the other subjects are, what we do day to day, but when we're interacting generally within the public, then it can help so much with regards to speaking with people of different ages, interactions with regards to problem solving, analysing. All of the different skills that you take from the creative subjects is what you can apply to every single job, no matter what job it is. And it just builds you up as a person. And then leading with regards to mental health, students just need that outlet to kind of be creative and be free. And I think, all the other subjects don't allow you to be free. I know with regard to writing, you kind of being creative, but just being physically free really does do so much wealth on your health.
Thank you. Well said, Davina. And Lacey, your message is to the policymakers, the senior leaders. What do they need to do more of?
Oh, well, thank you for giving me the easy one here. I would say, first of all, they would need to listen and then echo everything that has just been said by Remy and Davina, because they need to recognize the importance. But then I would also think that they need to reconsider what is actually considered to be the important subjects and what needs to be core and what does not need to be core, or the language around it. And My goodness, can you repeat part of that? Can you repeat that
No, it's
again?
okay. We're just saying a strong message to SLT, and you've summed it up really, that they need to reconsider what is core and what is option, change the language and the emphasis on one particular subject over another. And what would you like to say to the student now? You've got 30 seconds.
Experience everything that you could possibly experience. Take it all in, because it's part of your whole development as a person. And that goes both to SLT and to the student as well. Look at it holistically.
Thank you so much. Listen, we've come to the end of what I think has been a fantastic show. Lacey, thanks for giving up your time. I know you have a toddler and you've managed to keep him quiet. Davina, thank you for stepping in last minute and for really adding some insight to the show. And Remy, thank you for persevering and being determined to join us tonight. Thank you so much. It's great to hear from you all. Listeners, and those of you who've made your comments, Hope said, great conversation. Thank you. Thank you all for joining, whether you're here or abroad somewhere in Jamaica, Romania. I've got listeners from all over. Thank you so much. Let's continue to engage in these discussions with regards to education, things that truly matter. So we trust and hope that more effort will be made to support our young people with talents to excel in what we call option subjects. Thank you again for joining and for listening and for tuning in. And I will see you again in 2 weeks' time for another insightful discussion. Ladies, you've been brilliant. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.